So our next panel puts a spotlight on one of the most promising areas in the field of augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, and what it means to mental health. Please welcome Dr. Srini Pillai, who's a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and brain researcher. He's an advisor to McKinsey, think tank member, and CEO of the Neuro Business Group. Patrick Candela, who is the founder and CEO of Relay. The goal of solving work stress, the second most frequent health epidemic. Dr. Ricardo Gil da Costa, who is the founder and CEO of Neuroverse, an integrated neurotechnology company. His research has contributed seminal findings on the evolutionary and neural foundations of human cognition and language. Dr. Judd Brewer, who is a psychiatrist, neuroscientist, and best-selling author. He studies the neural mechanisms of mindfulness using standard and real-time fMRI. Please welcome.
Okay, friends, I'm really excited for the panel this morning, this afternoon, actually. We're going to have some of the leading experts when it comes to the mind, the brain, and really decode why we do what we do. Anxiety, emotional eating, smoking, shopping, self-judgment, anger. We're all faced with this every day, but why do we do it? And more importantly, is change possible? So to kickstart this panel today, I'm going to have Dr. Judd Brewer basically share his perspective on how can technology help us bring about change and transformation. Judd.
It's a great question. You know, as a psychiatrist, I realized at some point that my patients don't learn to get anxious in my office. They don't learn to smoke in my office. They don't learn to overeat in my office. And so was there some way that we could actually take my office and take some of the evidence-based trainings that we have and package them and deliver them to people at their fingertips? This is where the neuroscientist in me came in and said, okay, how do these mechanisms work? Can we actually take these mechanisms and start studying them and package the mechanisms so that we've got very clear therapeutic modalities that can be delivered to people at their fingertips? And we started as in my lab at Brown University has studied this, where we've looked at digital therapeutics, where we developed a mindfulness training for smoking, where we could find the neural mechanisms of how this affects the brain centers that get activated when we get caught up in cravings, and how this can specifically deactivate these, predicting reductions in cigarette smoking. We have an app for eating called Eat Right Now, where we could actually find a 40% reduction in craving-related eating, getting right at that mechanism. And as a psychiatrist, one of the things I've really struggled with is anxiety. Prescribing medications, there's this number needed to treat. I have to treat about 5 patients before one of them shows a significant reduction in symptoms. So could we actually approach anxiety through this neuroscientific perspective? And we've done several clinical studies now with these digital therapeutics, one with anxious physicians, where we got a 57% reduction in anxiety, one with people with generalized anxiety disorder, where we got a 67% reduction. And there we got this number needed to treat of 1.6. So I think looking at the evidence, we can really start from a mechanistic perspective and then take that delivery piece. And this is where digital therapeutics can be really helpful, putting these evidence-based mechanisms right at people's fingertips. And of course, studying these to see how well they work. And I think these are just some examples of where, if we do target the mechanisms and deliver them in a way that's accessible, they can actually be helpful for folks.
Awesome. Srini, you've spent a big part of your life looking at stress, anxiety in a clinical setting, and you have a very practical tool, which I know I've used and have actually kind of helped me manage my stress and anxiety. Can you share your thoughts?
Sure, but the tool that Punach is referring to is a tool that we call Circa. And Circa is actually based on brain science, and it's based on parts of the brain that we can change using just simple ways of reframing. So in Circa, the mnemonic, each letter stands for something. The first C stands for chunking, which is breaking things down into smaller pieces. So let's say on a particular day, you're particularly anxious and you're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to take everything on. You break it up into each hour. Or if this is a challenge over a week, you break it up per day. Then the I is ignore mental chatter, which is essentially mindfulness. It's a way of essentially placing your attention on your breath and then just ignoring whatever mental chatter there is for a certain period of time. The R is reality check, which is a form of self-talk, because often when we're anxious, we think that the anxiety is going to last forever when in fact it's going to go away. So you say, this too shall pass. The second C is control check. Because often when we're anxious, we try to control everything. We try to control the stock market. We try to control the future of coronavirus. We try to control things that we cannot control. So learning how to let go of that is particularly important. And then the A is for attention shift. Rather than focusing on the problem, we focus on the solution. And so Circa is a simple way of changing brain activation so that you can become calmer.
Thank you, Srini. So Patrick, and you're looking at technology and tools. You're the CEO for Roulé, and you're really looking at how to use AR, VR, and the next generation of MR technologies to solve this. Can you share some insights of what is possible now with technology?
Definitely. We think, AR and VR has great potential to help with stress and anxiety. First, VR is transformative. So it can change our actual sensory perception of the world. And often what we visually see or what we smell can change how we feel. So to feel calm or to feel a sense of awe or a sense of possibility, that's all achievable. The second is this concept of embodiment. So your body is actually transported to another space, say a beautiful forest, and your brain is actually convinced it's there too. So this allows the self to be removed from a negative space and brought into a positive space. And lastly is connection. So we see the potential of people all around the world coming and actually feeling together, especially for those who feel disconnected. So for example, a friend of mine told me the story of he and his father were separated due to the pandemic. One was in Mexico and one was in the US, but they were able to actually do virtual reality fishing together and created a positive memory. So this is game changing. At Roulé specifically, we're combining all these aspects and targeting with a patented approach 7 areas of the brain that are most affected by stress and anxiety, and then providing a 10-minute virtual intervention to help reset the brain. So it's simply, we do feel strongly about the potential and that changing your sensory outer space can change your inner space.
Awesome. So Ricardo, I've worked with you over the years, and I remember you working with Marvell and coming up with the Brain Station. How can neuroscience and I would say real-time feedback, things like VR, what are your thoughts on technology and where you are with neuroscience on that?
I think neuroscience can definitely be helpful. That's what got us to, sort of get out of the lab and spawn Neuroverse, as you know, was to have an actionable tool set that could bring the findings from neuroscience into real life applications. Patrick, Srini, we're talking about the different things that we can get from mindfulness, or then, cover or wrap mindfulness in a technology setting like the VR or augmented reality, which is great. If you can then take the next step, which is what we try to do, and we can do it with a brain station, which is then connected with a real-time measurement of how your brain is correlating to your neural states are correlated to your mental states, and provide that information that's critical. But I think that neuroscience needs to go beyond just the metrics, right? It can't just be another Fitbit for your brain. For us, we really believe that you need to have a set of intervention tools together with the metrics. So the metrics can be very helpful because it can help you adjust and changing behavior, but it's also good to have different tools that can help you to do more, being passive interventions or active interventions, like integrating mindfulness or other settings into this, which we do, or other types of neurofeedback in real time that allows you, as Patrick was alluding to shift correlations between neural networks, or to at least change mental states with a neural trigger to it.
So Ricardo, I know you've been working a lot on sleep, right? I think sleep is one of the biggest challenges we are facing of our times. I know I went through my own challenges with sleep, and Srini told me, so what? You're not sleeping much these days, it's good, get over it. So it kind of worked actually, Srini. I didn't take myself too seriously. But on a more serious note, you work with special ops, you work with Marines and people who really sleep is critical. They're very sleep depleted. Where do you see technology, sleep, and what are some of the solutions looking at? I want to open it up then to everybody to kind of share their perspective on the future of technology and sleep.
Look, I think that sleep right now is at the core of everything. We were talking right before the panel how anxiety has been a big problem, and right now with COVID-19 pandemic is just skyrocketed to a whole new level. And sleep is not just a way to restore; it's also a way to scan and assess how you're doing. So sleep becomes the restorative mechanism for the brain all throughout attention, memory, integration, consolidation, all those things that we need to do in our daily lives. So it's critical. And sometimes people confuse the time that you spend in bed with good sleep quality is not the same thing as sleep duration per se, right? So, and the other thing is sleep doesn't start just when you go to bed. Someone was telling me a while ago that sleep starts when you wake up. And I think it's absolutely true. Everything that we're going to do throughout the day and how we're going to treat that is going to impact your sleep. So you're right. We started working and focusing on sleep about 4 years ago. We work with the United States Army, with Walter Reed, Army Institute of Research up in Bethesda. And we're interested in having a way to, have really advanced sleep analytics that we can go beyond the traditional staging, but looking at other ways like entropy that can be related to performance. But very importantly, we wanted to find ways to have interventions to improve your sleep. And we're doing two kinds, at the risk of sounding repetitive, but again, passive and active. So we're using actually mindfulness techniques, specially created mindfulness techniques, working with you, with Deepak, where we pick specific mindfulness trainings. With Louis Schwartzberg, we develop a new visual mindfulness technique that you know about as well, that really excites us. It goes to some of the work that Srini and Patrick have been doing, I think, with natural scenes, with very specific chosen natural scenes and sequences. And the nice thing about it is that it requires less training and practice than the traditional mindfulness or mental meditation. But we like to have an offering of all these types of things specifically created before you go to sleep to get you in the right mental state to go to sleep. And then I have another set for when we wake up. So those are your active ones, but we're also developing using different, in our case, is doing auditory stimulation, so pink noise. We're trying to increase the amount of time that you spend on deep sleep, or not wanting to get too technical, but increase the slow wave oscillations in deep sleep. So again, try to compact in a smaller amount of time if you can really afford to sleep for 9 hours, but can we improve at max your quality of your sleep and what you're during that sleep period. So those are, passive. It's basically tones that go throughout the night and have really encouraging results with that. But I do think that sleep is a great thing because it's not just the sleeping quality. Your sleep quality, we have studies going on different mental disorders, from generalized anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, all the way to pain management with oncology patients. And what we find out is that sleep will impact every single one of them. Not only your cognitive performance, attention, memory, et cetera, is going to be different, but even things like resistance to pain management, worse sleep quality nights lead to increased pain. All those things are going to be present. So if we want to have something that is going to be holistic and try to really address all these mental issues, you need to definitely make sleep at least a strong component of it.
Got it. So I think we have about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure I kind of use sleep as the anchor. So I think between Srini, Judd, what are your thoughts on the future of sleep and from technology? And then I want to start with Srini, Judd, and Patrick, and we can close out the conversation. Srini?
I think I would really, what Ricardo said really resonated with me. The way I think about sleep in terms of addressing those issues is to assess for yourself whether the amount of sleep and the quality of sleep is something that's normal. So you're either sleeping too much, too little, or you have good or poor quality of sleep. And the second thing is just to remember that poor sleep features in a lot of psychiatric syndromes. It's a key feature of major depression. It's a key feature of generalized anxiety disorder. It's a key feature of bipolar disorder and mania. So just to remember that sleep can affect how you feel, and how you feel can affect your sleep. And if you're someone who's feeling hopeless or lonely or feeling like you really can't move forward in your life and you're not sleeping properly, remember that addressing that sleep can actually change the way you feel as well.
Thank you. Judd?
I'll just say very briefly, just building on what Ricardo and Srini were talking about, if we don't know how our minds work and how our minds can get in the way of sleep. So for example, anxiety, worry is a big issue that affects sleep. If we don't know how our minds work, we can't possibly work with our minds. So my lab just finished a study with our Unwinding Anxiety app specifically related to sleep, with the hypothesis that if we can help people with their worry and with their anxiety, that can actually improve their sleep. And here, as we train people to work with their minds, then they can indeed work with their minds and improve their sleep. And so I think getting at these, we can use technology to help us learn how our own minds work, and then we can use our own technology of our own minds to work with ourselves and improve our sleep that way.
Fantastic. Patrick, look at VR. I'm wearing goggles and headsets. How can that help with sleep?
Yeah, I think at Roulette, we are taking a clinical approach to the body of work around VR and AR. Specifically, we've been focusing on generalized anxiety disorders and are releasing a report, or study rather, with the #1 US hospital coming out this summer. Sleep is something that we are starting to get some signals that it definitely can help. But I think as a whole, the market and technology, we've just scratched the surface, and we're excited to see about the possible applications of where it can help sleep.
Right. So I think I like the statement Srini was made to me earlier. He said only 14% of Americans meditate, and the role of technology is help the other 86% who don't. So we have less than 2 minutes. Any closing comments or thoughts? Anybody just want to take 30 seconds to give their view of technology in the future? Jed, you want to start?
I think will be. I don't know if Judd or Srini agree with me. I think they would, but is that we haven't touched is precision and personalization. You know, we're talking about all these technologies, all these approaches, and they're great. However, it's not going to be one size fits all. So whatever technology they're going to use, one needs to really keep that precision that, you know, Judd has on his lab, that I have, that Srini works to. When we bring it to a commercial product, we can't just relax and make it, you know, whatever. It needs to be very precise. And then the other thing is, for these things to work, they need to personalize. And that's true for sleep, you know, age, demographics, gender experience, all of that is going to matter. So these technologies are going to be incredibly more efficient. And we do that with sleep. We do that with a migraine prediction system we have, as you know. Having a way to personalize for that one person and actually test the efficacy on that individual level, so that he or she does not just have to do it because 30 other people said it worked with them, but have a way to test on themselves, which we do with Neuroverse. And I think, you know, most people are trying to do when they're doing it seriously, that we know that works for you as an individual. I think that's going to be critical.
Srini and Judd, any thoughts?
The one liner I would give is that, you know, we form a new habit, short moments, many times. And so here, you know, as you were talking about, there are not that many people meditate, for example. And I think we can use technology as a way to help people learn these practices, short moments, many times throughout the day, as a way to develop new, healthier habits that can help us all live more fulfilled and connected lives.
So once again, I think, thank you, Jed. Thank you, Srini, Patrick, Ricardo. This was an amazing panel, and I guess we're out of time. So once again, thank you again.